Stocks close higher on Wall Street. The Dow snaps a 5-day losing streak, while the Nasdaq gains for the 8th session out of the last 9. Treasury yields rise to fresh 3-month highs. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific open largely higher following a strong close on Wall Street. The Nikkei continues to surge despite parliamentary uncertainty, while the GIFT Nifty suggesting a higher start for the Indian market. Oil prices continue to slip. Brent falls below the $72 a barrel mark as geopolitical uncertainty recedes after Israel's retaliation on Iran ignores key energy facilities. Bharti Airtel reports a strong second quarter in line with estimates. Tariff hikes drive revenue growth, while profit declines on an exceptional loss in Africa. In key earnings to track, a subdued second quarter is expected from Maruti Suzuki. Cipla is expected to see a recovery in generic sales along with high single-digit growth in the India business. Also watch for earnings from Adani Enterprises and Marico. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. We are all dressed in Indian today. This is the start of the festivities, so happy Dhanteras to all the viewers. May you have an amazing and prosperous one. So while we are talking about Dhanteras, we have to talk about what's happening in the markets as well. First up, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. It was a strong handover from Wall Street. The Asian markets are largely mixed right now. So if we talk about the Taiwanese index, it's down around 300 points. So the weakness there continues. We have the Hang Seng, which is doing well. So that index is up almost 1%. The Nikkei, that is an important index to track right now. Despite all the political and parliamentary uncertainties there, that index continues to do well, 0.4% higher. And it's largely a mixed picture for the Asian markets. And if we get the GIFT Nifty up for you, because that is the one which will indicate the moves for our own markets, it is absolutely flat with some positive bias right now. But remember, we did see that recovery yesterday after 5 continuous days of losses on Indian markets. We'll have to see which way things go today, whether we'll build on to that rally or there could be some consolidation at these levels. Let's talk about the US markets now. Wall Street ended Monday's trading session higher. The Dow Jones closes more than 270 points in the green, while the S&P 500 ended 15 points higher. The tech-heavy index, the Nasdaq, also gained nearly 50 points at close. The uptick comes even as yields continue to rise further ahead of the upcoming US elections and the Fed meet next week. And let's stay with the US markets. Let's listen into what Richard Fisher, the former Dallas Fed president, had to say on the rate cut trajectory and if it is likely to see a rate cut in the post-election Fed meeting.
We have good economic growth at 3% or so, most likely in this quarter. Pretty full employment. Manufacturing continues to suffer, but there still is demand for services. So if I were sitting at the table, Scott, I would probably be almost arguing there's no need to do anything. We don't do it to satisfy the stock market bettors that are depending on every little bitty move. We have to realize that after the last 50 basis point cut, from the 6-month all the way out the yield curve on treasuries, rates are higher. You just pointed out the 10-year. It's also true for the 1-year, for the 2-year, for the 6-month, and the 30-year. So the question is, why is that happening? And as you know, I have my own theories about that, but I'm not sure it makes a difference, frankly, at this point. And I would probably be arguing, let's just settle in here. I'm willing to accept 25 if the rest of the committee wants to do it, but I'm not sure it's necessary at this point. I would expect another quarter sometime this year. It could be at either meeting. But again, for this meeting, I don't think it's necessary. There's still a lot of data that we want to see.
All right, that's the global market action and opinion. But how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in bright and early, all dressed in their fineries. They are joining in to tell you what the trade setup is looking like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning. Happy Dhanteras to all of you. Vamakshi, let me come to you first up. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, happy Dhanteras to you, Sonal. Actually, when we look at the markets yesterday, they snapped a 5-day losing streak. Markets rise, after positive global handover as well as the fall that we saw in the crude prices yesterday. In fact, the broader markets outshined the benchmark indices. Nifty mid-cap saw an uptick of 0.8%, while Nifty small-cap surged over 1.2% in the trading session yesterday. All sectoral indices ended in the green as well, with the Nifty PSU Bank leading the charge. It saw an uptick of almost 4% in the trading session yesterday. Nifty Metal and Nifty Realty were some other sectoral indices which were gaining in the trading session yesterday. Now the US markets too saw a very good session. All three benchmark indices closed in the green. In fact, Dow Jones snapped its 5-day losing streak, while Nasdaq notched its 8th positive session in the last 9. 10-year US Treasury rose to 4.274. This is the highest level seen since July 2024, and resultantly the gold price eased yesterday. As far as the cues for today are concerned, we will be keeping an eye out on the US CB consumer confidence data. A lot of stocks will be reacting to the numbers as well, which includes Spandana Spurti, Indian Oil, Bharti Airtel, as well as Federal Bank. We will also be keeping an eye out on Adani Enterprises, Maruti, Marico, as well as Cipla and several other counters that will be reporting their numbers today. As of now, the GIFT Nifty is indicating a muted start for the trading session today.
Oh yes, it's just flattish, 4 points higher right now. Thank you so much, Mamakshi, for joining us with all those cues. Let's go across to Sudarshan. He will list out all the stocks that will be on our radar today. Sudarshan, good morning.
Morning, Sonal. So we'll start with companies which have reported earnings. First one is Bharti Airtel. It has reported a strong quarter and has come earnings in line with estimates. Revenue is up 8%. Average revenue per user has increased more than 10% sequentially. IGL, it was a mixed Q2. It has reported beat on volumes, but margin has missed estimates. Margin has come in at 14.5%. Volume has come at 9 MSC MD. For Federal Bank, it was a steady set of earnings and eyes up 15%. Margin holds above 3.15%. Suzlon, revenue has risen 48%. Margin was down 180 bips. And order book is at an all-time high of 5.1 gigawatt. For J. Kumar Infra, it was a steady Q2. Revenue is up 17%. Margin is flat at 14.6%. JSW Infra, it has reported healthy volume growth and which has supported revenue. Revenue is up 18% and margin has risen almost 1400 bips year on year. For Kalpataru Projects, it has reported a healthy Q2. Order book has risen 29% and margin has increased 70 bips. Tata Technology, it has seen modest dollar revenue growth of 1.6% sequentially and margin holds above the levels of 18%. Spandana Spurti, sharp deterioration in asset quality. Gross NPA and net NPA have nearly doubled sequentially and it has reported loss against profit in the same quarter last year and sequentially as well. KFin Technology, earnings were better than estimates. Revenue is up 18% and EBITDA has risen 27% sequentially. Last one is Tata Power. On the back of news, it has acquired 40% stake in Khorlochu Hydropower for amount of rupees more than 800 crore. These are the stocks that might be in focus today.
All right. Thank you so much for that list, Sudarshan. But a lot of action in the FNO space as well. Mangalam is joining in now. Good morning, Mangalam.
Good morning. Around the festive season, things seem optimistic and there is some glimmer of hope, especially given yesterday's up move that we saw in the market, some recovery that we saw. And the recovery was led by some of these risk-on names as well. You had, the print caps, the small caps, the PSUs doing extremely well. Was that just a bounce or is this, something which is a little more formidable? It's something that we'll come to know only over the next few trading sessions. But the Nifty Bank, good results coming in from ICICI Bank, that led the index higher by about 1% itself. Two positive data trends that I'm looking at. One, the FII selling that we're talking about, over 1 lakh crore in the previous month, is now starting to abate a little bit. Is this again just a blip or is this the trend? Something we'll watch out for. A few days ago, the average selling was 5,600 crores. Yesterday, it fell to about 3,200 crores. The second part, we've been talking about how the FIs have been shorting in index futures. For the last 4 trading sessions, they've actually added their long positions and they've covered some short positions as well. Yesterday was no different. 2,700 crore worth buying in index futures and they've covered around 22,000 short contracts, added about 14,000 long contracts as well. And if you look at it over the last 4 trading sessions, the FII net long, which was at 33%, has now slowly inched higher all the way up to 40%. And net contracts, which were negative 1.7 lakh, have now moved to sub 1 lakh contracts itself. So that's telling you that maybe some bit of optimism at lower levels is what the street is seeing. Where do we go from here? 24,500 is an important psychological mark for the Nifty to watch out for. But at the lower level, we are seeing some support coming in at 24,200 to 24,150. Why do I say that? Because the 24,300 put writers and the 24,400 put writers are fairly active. Yesterday's low of the Nifty of 23,150 thereabouts is something which will be crucial to watch. On the way up for both the Nifty and the Nifty Bank is the 100-day moving average and the 20-day moving average, which we need to conquer. So that's something we'll watch out for the Nifty Bank today. And then thereafter for the Nifty as well, 24,615 is the 100-day moving average and 24,900 is the 20-day moving average. Until these levels are crossed formidably, difficult to say whether, the up move is just a bounce or whether it is something structural. A bunch of stocks in focus. PNB has entered FNO ban. We have Aarti Industries, Bandhan Bank and NMDC all of them which are out of F&O ban in the expiry week.
All right, that's all the action from the F&O space. This is our Power Prep segment. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in with those details. Let's now get you some updates from the primary markets. Food delivery aggregator and quick commerce service provider Swiggy India's IPO will hit the street on the 6th of November and will remain open for subscription till the 8th of November. The issue will consist of a fresh issue of equity shares worth 4,499 crore rupees, and shareholders will be able to get, will also get selling 17.5 crore shares in the IPO. Okay, a small programming note as we slip into a break as we prepare to ring in the festivities this Diwali. Tune into CNBC TV 18 at 2:30 p.m. today to hear out the biggest of market voices giving their tips on how you can make your portfolio prosper this Diwali. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Telecom major Bharti Airtel reported a strong second quarter earnings in line with the estimates. Reema Tendulkar is joining in to give detailed rundown of the earnings fine print and the analysis as well. Reema, good morning.
Hi, good morning. So Airtel has reported a strong quarter in line with estimates, and it's largely driven by the tariff hikes announced by the India mobile business. Profit, though, has seen a decline of about 13.5% to 3,600 crore, but that is due to an exceptional loss. There was a forex loss due to the currency devaluation in Africa, but operationally, good numbers. So the company has reported a consolidated revenue growth of 7.7% ahead of estimates of 6%, and this is driven by a 10+% revenue growth. This is all quarter on quarter in the India mobile revenue growth, which I said again is driven by the near 15-16% tariff hike undertaken by Airtel in early July. Now, this drove up the ARPUs, the average revenue per user also going up by 10.5% to 233 rupees. The overall subscriber base did decline by 2.9 million subscribers on a quarter-on-quarter basis. But again, it appears the low-end ARPU subscribers were the ones who probably left the network on account of the tariff hike. The 4G subscribers did see an increase. And also, if you compare Bharti Airtel with Reliance Jio, Bharti Airtel's operational performance in revenues, in margins, ARPU increase, the loss in subscriber is a little superior to what Reliance Jio has also announced. And there's also a leadership transition. Gopal Vittal will now be grooming the current CEO as the new CEO as he takes on additional responsibilities. Back to you.
Okay, all right. All right, Reema, thank you so much for joining in. So that's Bharti Airtel. With that, let's move on. On the sidelines of the World Bank's annual IMF meetings, my colleague Malika Jain caught up with Ajay Seth, who's the Secretary of Department of Economic Affairs, and they discussed a wide range of issues, one of them being generating enough opportunities for people in India, including job creation and other focus areas. Listen into what he thinks the government of India should focus on.
A job gets created when the investment happens in the economy. Of course, there has to be right skilling.
Sure.
And at the moment, World Bank and Asian Development Bank are working very closely with Government of India to put together the scheme which Finance Minister announced in the July budget, a major skilling program in partnership with the states and the industry. And both these banks are working with the Ministry of Skill Development in India to put together a good program based on their global experience and, of course, what is needed by Indian economy. So jobs get created through the investment into the economy. And which are the investment areas possible? One, of course, is on the connectivity side, on infrastructure side, on climate mitigation coming through the energy transition, which is a global public good as well. So these are the areas where discussed it, and also discussion happened around that how the private capital can be mobilized through leveraging banks' financing.
Sure. And so for private capital mobilization, were any particular sectors identified, or that would also be at a macro level? And then
no, I mentioned it like about
infrastructure.
Infrastructure, and within infrastructure in particular about connectivity. And India has invested very significant amount in the last 7-8 years in terms of its road infrastructure, ports, airports, railways. These are the potential areas to attract private capital to supplement or to complement what the government systems are doing. In addition to connectivity, then comes the entire energy piece. The way India has been investing to renewable energy, the transmission lines. That is the second set of areas which were identified. Then, of course, there are other areas like urban infrastructure, which is a more complex sector, but that is also on the table.
And you can catch this very interesting conversation all day today only on CNBC TV 18. And with that, we'll slip into a break. When we come back, we'll talk about all the cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Let's talk about some updates on the India-China LAC agreement. Disengagement process between Indian and Chinese forces in the Depsang Plains and Demchok sectors of eastern Ladakh is underway, and its completion is expected soon. The Indian Army aims to conclude the process by today, following which coordinated patrolling will resume in the area. The Indian side has been striving to restore the situation to the status quo before April 2020, when Chinese military aggression triggered a prolonged standoff along the LAC. China's foreign ministry confirmed that frontline troops from both sides are working in accordance with recently reached agreements. This comes after both countries announced that an agreement had been reached, bringing an end to the over 4-year military standoff. Okay, with that, let's move on. Let's get in Manisha Gupta. She's joining in with all the updates from the commodity space. Good morning, Manisha. What are the commodities you're focusing on today?
Thank you. Morning, and a very happy Dhanteras to you. I'm absolutely looking at gold and silver prices right now because even as we are looking at Israel-Iran restraint on strikes on facilities, and even as you're looking at Treasury and the US dollar index gain, even with that, the gold and silver prices really are at an all-time high that you would have seen any Dhanteras or Diwali. So the support clearly comes in from uncertainties from the US presidential elections, ongoing geopolitical tensions, and the global central buying as well. So when you look at this week as well, until now, we are doing quite well when it comes to gold and silver. What is not doing so well clearly has been the crude oil prices. After a 6% decline overnight and the biggest one-day loss in 2 years, we are looking at 0.5% increase right now, and that is because there are statements from US that they are planning to purchase nearly 3 million barrels of crude oil for their strategic petroleum reserve. In any case, after a 6% of a decline yesterday, there is some opportunity buying that we're looking at right now. But more importantly, there's a lot of economic data coming in on this week. You have the US GDP numbers, inflation data, payroll numbers, all of that comes in this week. So ahead of that, there is a bit of a choppiness that we see here.
All right. Thank you so much, Manisha, for joining us with those details, and happy Dhanteras to you as well. With that, let's move on now. In some tragic news, over 150 people were injured in a fireworks accident during a temple festival near Nileswaram on Monday. It is suspected that the accident occurred when a fireworks storage facility near the temple caught fire. In a similar incident, a massive fire broke out at a firecracker store in Hyderabad's busy Ramkot area last evening. According to the police, the intense blaze resulted in minor injuries to a woman, and at least 8 cars parked nearby were gutted. The police confirmed that the firecracker store was illegally established without any license. Okay, all right. On that note, we'll do one thing. We'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast, but do stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.